we'll display this plaque. Again, sometimes you name things for people because of what they represented. He put the shovel in the ground and actually made it happen and did everything else in between. So we're very grateful to Dan and to his family. And at this time, I'd like to ask his wife, Jeannie, and his son, Ian, to come up, please.
Bishop Snyder, Deacon David, athletes, family, and friends. Today is a day of celebration and a day of joy. We're here to celebrate the goodness of our God, who is the source of all goodness, and to praise him and thank him for the many blessings that he's given us. Our God is a God of generosity. My husband Danny was a man with a generous heart. He gave to others out of his abundance of love and from his deep desire to serve God and his people. In the early coaching days at Bishop Kenny, I would find receipts for running shoes, uniforms, food, you name it, and I knew that he was looking out after his athletes. There were many nights when he would not come home until very, very late, and I would frantically question where he had been, only to find out that several of the kids had no one to pick them up after track meets, and he had driven all over Jacksonville to get them home. On occasion, the phone would ring in the middle of the night, and it was the runner on the other end of the line who needed Danny to reassure him that whatever crisis was happening, he would be there to help. As the athletes and students graduated and moved on to their adult lives, Danny continued to be there when the phone rang, there to help them deal with loss, with fear, with sickness, divorce, legal problems, and more. And I watched the sacredness of all of that. As Danny grew in wisdom and age, so did his desire to serve. He served at our parish and in the Catholic legal community, in Honduras on mission trips, but his deepest love of service really never changed. It was right out here at the track, and I believe that I know why. I heard Danny say many things over and over, as many of you did. He loved to share his philosophy about life with all of us. But on many occasions, he would have a discussion with me about the sport of track and field. I would ask him, why track? And his answers were always the same. He would say, Jeannie, track and field is the purest of all sport. It comes down to the runner and the clock, or the thrower and the measuring tape. That's it. Nothing else gets in the way. All you need is a pair of running shoes and a desire to compete, not against others, but against yourself. That's why it's the purest and the best of all sports. But Danny understood that young people have a need to test themselves and their spirits to find out what they're made of. He knew that the safest place to do that was right out here on this track. Track became a metaphor for the challenges that in life that we will all face one day, a place to encounter the Spirit of God within us, a place to practice coming face to face with our fears and our self-imposed limitations and pushing through them. After living with Danny for nearly 30 years, I guess I learned that lesson pretty well, as have our sons. That lesson enables me to continue living, loving, and serving, even after having to say goodbye to my soulmate. He leaves 4 beautiful sons who have learned their father's lessons well and who are going forward in the world with a desire to serve others and to live generous lives. He leaves countless former students and athletes whose lives he impacted in ways we will never know. And he leaves behind this beautiful track that will serve Bishop Snyder High School for many, many generations to come. So thank you, Bishop Snyder, Deacon David, Nate, Stanley, and all of you who contributed so generously to this track with your time, talent, and treasure. Thank you for honoring my husband, Danny, and our family with this dedication. As Danny was fond of saying, if we build it, they will run. The dream is now reality. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ian Brown, oldest of the four. We all have an interesting perspective on Dad because not only was he our father, but we all were coached by him. So we were on the inside, too. And I find a common bond when I meet people, even when they're much older than me, that were ever coached by my dad. It's a unique experience that you always will have. I've been at Snyder for 5 years with the track program, and I taught here for 2 years immediately after I finished at FSU. My dad could make any task significant and purpose-filled. I threw shot and disc for my dad, and I can vividly recall sitting in a classroom before the season began as he looked us directly in the eyes and said, "To be on this team, you must follow 3 simple rules. The first rule, you must submit to me." And as his son, you know, I was 14 when he first told me that, and I'm looking around a room full of my peers and upperclassmen, and I was like, are they going to go for this? And they always did. And he was in your eyes, and he was not going to lose you. Rule 2, he said you had to become a disciple of form. He wanted you to take on your event, embrace it, make it you, and study every bit of the minutia, all the detail. And the third rule was to just give 100% effort. The effort had to be there. And if you had those things going, even if you were at the bottom, finished last in every competition, he would give you as much effort in his coaching as anyone else on the team. These rules were usually introduced by a long pause. We knew he wasn't joking, and we knew we were all in trouble. My freshman and sophomore year, I remember getting embarrassed and uncomfortable when he would go through these rules. But over time, I grew to see my father in a completely new light. I saw the method behind what appeared to be madness as I was growing up. Now, as a father, a husband, and a coach, I find myself intentionally emulating what he tried to instill in myself, my 3 brothers, and the thousands of other athletes that he touched along his life. As I coach the shot and discus, I realize I'm continually drawn to the coaching as a way of paying forward the deep life lessons that my dad was able to communicate through the sport of track and field. If we viewed track and field as simply trying to get athletes to shave time off a run, jump or vault a little higher, or get a few more feet in a throw, we would have left the sport years ago. My father taught us that life, every life, is significant, and we must walk each day with purpose and direction, even if we don't know what that purpose and direction is. I didn't realize when I was young, but my father was actually preparing us for the challenges, the greater life challenges to come, through the sport of track and field as a metaphor. My father drove young men and women to challenge themselves not only physically and emotionally, but spiritually. One of my favorite and most recent quotes from my dad came during last year's track season, the '09 track season. I was coaching with him, which was a great experience, and it was about this time in the year, and I had some athletes that weren't necessarily progressing how I thought, and I came to him with, you know, I was kind of down that day, and he just smiled at me and grinned, and he said, "Son, do you know why we're here?" I was never good with those rhetorical questions, so I just stared at him, and he said, "Son, we are here to coach souls," and he meant it. And you know what he was wearing that day? He was wearing a Snyder t-shirt with some Brooks Brothers suit pants and dress shoes. So he had come straight from the office, and he was going to put in, you know, 3 more hours out here. And he might pick up a shovel in that outfit too. I'm very proud to stand here before you as Dan Brown's son to honor a great man and dedicate this beautiful facility to his name. Thank you all for sharing this moment with us and carrying on his legacy.